good plan.
Go ahead.
So I'll say it again. I think the goals for tonight are to confirm who's doing what, to set a date for the next meeting, and to say what the deliverables are for that meeting. Does that sound like a reasonable thing to try to get done?
Yep.
Okay. So Larry is here. Larry, is Janice with you?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. So we have 3 out of the 4 people who said they wanted to do something. Just checking to make sure that, all of those folks are still good with the assignment.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm good.
Steve,
I forget what
Cullen,
I signed up for, but I'm good
Planning.
with it.
Same here.
Janice signed up for checking in state.
Okay, that's easy.
And after, I'm sorry, are you saying something, Anita?
So I don't think I'm actually set up in any station, am I? So,
Well, so I'm going to get to that next.
okay.
Steve Kellum volunteered for IC&D mode, which is great. Okay, so that gives us one open station, which is spontaneous volunteers and donations, which Amita and Christine said they could do it. So here's your chance to take a giant step forward or backwards, Amita.
So, I'm sorry, which one is this station?
Spontaneous volunteers and donations.
Sure, happy to do that.
Okay. I know none of us have done it, so all we have is paper procedures.
Okay.
So the good news is nothing you say is wrong. And there are procedures written up in the handbook, that should get you started.
Okay, perfect.
And if you have any trouble finding it, or if I'm confused and it's not really there, let me know. And but I'm pretty sure it's there.
Okay, yeah, I'm pretty sure I'll reach out to you about it, just in case.
Yeah,
Not a problem.
it's section 15. I'm going to put the CERT positions guide in the chat for everybody. Sorry to interrupt, Neil. Go ahead.
No, it's not interrupting. It's very relevant. So we don't know how many people are going to be signing up, but we have 6 stations, and I was thinking 15 minutes a station. So that's an hour and a half plus, whatever the warm up. Thank you so much for coming out here today spiel is, and the afterward, thank you so much for coming out, anything you want to tell us part. So it should be about 2 hours total. What isn't clear to me is whether or not we're going to be doing just one section or 2 sections, run 2 or 3 people in parallel. And I'm proposing we decide that when we see how many signups we have. Because it really doesn't change a whole lot to do things in parallel. I know some people said they wanted to both present and hear everyone else. And I'm proposing we're going to have a dry run anyway, where people can run through and we can get comments. And I think that's a good chance for all the presenters, if they want to refresh on the other things, to hear what they are. Does that work for folks? Okay, I see
Neil?
1 thumbs up.
Neil,
Yes.
Janice has a question. Yeah, my question is, how are we going to recruit people to come to this event?
So I was just thinking emails to LAH CERT, several, and probably a Nixle message too. Do you have other ideas? I think this is focused on CERTs as opposed to the bigger community and teen CERTs. But I mean, do you think it's a general community thing?
No, not necessarily. I'm just curious about who might come. Are we going to have enough people to make it worth the effort?
It's always
Yeah.
a crapshoot, but we have 30 people who show up to stuff and 70 people who we never see in round numbers.
Would it be worth doing actual phone calls to these people and putting them on the spot, if you will, to ask, to say, hey, it's been a long time since we've seen you. This is coming. Why don't you seriously consider coming, because we're going to give you a really serious, significant review of the program.
I have no problem with reaching out if we get volunteers to do it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think Larry's volunteering to call a bunch of people.
That's what I learned that process 25 years ago, and I still haven't learned how not to do it. But seriously, it is worth experimenting with, at least to see whether that kind of personal effort triggers any response on the part of some of these people that otherwise don't necessarily have time to look at their email or other ways that they might have never learned about. Anyway, point to think.
Again, I think it's it's a great idea except for the effort part. My suggestion to cut it down would be to put out an RSVP thing and then only bother calling down the people who didn't RSVP.
Works for me. Anything less that I volunteer to do, the better. No, that makes sense, because why call people that have already said they're interested?
Yeah.
I agree.
And then maybe just a reminder the day before
Yes.
it's happening.
Yeah, definitely.
And I know we talk about giving out tchotchkes, and I don't know if this is a tchotchke what's the right term? Eligible event.
It is. I've talked to Victoria about this, and she's got a nice item for people who show up to the drill.
So, I mean, that's an extra something. Obviously, if you're not in the program anymore, it's not very much. But I'd say if you haven't responded to Dave's survey, you don't respond to the Nixle survey, and and not reachable by phone, you're not really much of a CERT member anymore. Yeah, I mean, you're a CERT member if you don't go to this drill, but if you're not responding to anything, you're not really a CERT member.
That's certainly realistic. If we don't get any response after all of that, there's no real reason to expect them to suddenly change their minds.
And if they do show up, they're more like a spontaneous volunteer anyway.
Yeah.
But that's just my opinion. That's not an official thing. So, deliverables. I was thinking, and this is just me, and I'm very open to other opinions or ideas, of trying to write up a short handout to give to people to reinforce what I'm going to say while I'm doing it. Now, in some sense, there is a handout. It's the position thing, but I was thinking about something shorter and sweeter than that, or maybe larger type. Call it what you want.
And reading glasses to go with it.
But it's something to talk through, and my personal opinion is people retain things better if there's both something they can look at as well as something you can say.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
I see Amita talking, but I'm not hearing anything.
Oops, sorry. I don't know why when I press mute, it remutes it. It's so weird. I think that's a great idea. I know that we used to do that with Mike as well, and I felt it was very helpful and kept people engaged. So I totally agree with you.
So I think we want no more than 10 minutes of presentation and 5 minutes for questions. And to me, 10 minutes is like 4 to 5 slides, except if you're me and you talk very fast. But something about that. Does that seem about the right level of exposition?
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get, this is not a college class where you're going to get a full hour of careful attention. And this is going to be, you want to remember the high points, a couple of what is this station about and how does it operate per station? And the thing I was thinking that's kind of in the same vein is rather than talking about what happens in the station, but actually sort of walk through the motions of running that station for, an incident report comes in, I hand it to Scribe, Scribe puts it up on the whiteboard, describe through the process instead of saying the Scribe does this and the operations chief is supposed to do something else.
Right. I feel like we're not trying to make supervisors at this training. This
Right,
is a refresher so people can be an assistant without starting cold.
right.
Or have a general idea of the paperwork so when they're out in the field, they know why it's taken us 15 minutes to get there. Is the
Uh,
other.
I'm behind you 100% on that one, because it's hard to get a grip on why it takes so long to get anything done at the ARC.
Okay, so we talked deliverables. The next thing is next time to meet. When hopefully all 6 of us will have those deliverables. Is a week enough time?
Is
What
for
will be
me.
the focus of the next meeting?
Going over everyone's handouts, which means hopefully it's pre-distributed.
So you would have people create their handouts, or at least a form of their handouts by that time, correct?
Yeah, well, I'm thinking we can even ideally review a few of them. Unless it's a really long meeting. That's who Dr. Automation is. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Neil. Hi, everybody.
Unless it's a really long meeting, I don't think we'll do all 6, but I'm gonna guess not everyone's gonna have their homework done by next week. So maybe next week and the week after we can do it.
Uh-oh, what's the homework?
So we have finished 80% of the meeting. How about if I give you a quick recap? So I wanted to thank you for volunteering for IC. We talked about the position guide and how to find it. I believe you should be able to see that in the chat if you don't already know where it is. We're planning on having 6 stations, 15 minutes each, 10 minutes of presentation, 5 minutes of questions and answers. We'll decide how many. Steve, we're picking up a lot of background noise. Do you mind muting? Thank you. So 6 stations, that's roughly 2 hours, an hour and a half, I guess, is what time 6 is, and then 15 minutes at the beginning and end, and that gives us a nice 2-hour drill. And time to run behind. The list of people is the same as I sent out, except that you're IC&D MOB and Amita is spontaneous volunteers and donations. We'd like to not try to, we'd like to have something to hand out to people to help them remember and follow along. We're thinking like 4 to 5 slides, something like that. It only has to fill 10 minutes. And we'd like to have the first draft of those things by, I'm going to say next week. And I was just asking if next week is reasonable.
I think it's good. It kind of drives us to getting it finished by the middle of next week.
So I'm going to ask this, of which 5 of us are here, and I will reach out to Bridget. That we need to have our first draft by next week. Steve, did you want to say something?
Oops, no.
Okay. I'm not trying to pick on you. It's just your mic is picking up all sorts of room noise.
Weird, it's quiet here.
Yeah, you're very rumbly. It's like there's a fan.
So looking at my calendar, it looks like COVID Q&A with Dr. Yu is at 7. Should we have this at 8 to avoid overlapping?
I'm good with that. I don't think I'm going to go to the Dr. Yu. And plus, if he runs a little late, he doesn't usually run late though, does he? He's pretty tight.
Yeah, but Victoria usually goes to it, so I want to not overlap.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm fine with that. 8 is actually a little better for me. 7 to 8 is dinner hour here.
That's next Wednesday?
Yes.
Yeah,
the
Wednesday
2nd.
the 2nd.
Probably a good time for me to comment, and that is that I would like to offer myself as a sounding board. I talked to Neil about this before, that if you would like to try out your ideas on me, or I welcome anybody who wants to explore what their stuff sounds like when they're trying to present it to someone else. Mostly I'm offering to be a backup in case there's one of you gets called out of town at the last minute. So I want to make sure that I'm comfortable about representing what you're trying to say if you're not there to say it.
Thank you, Larry.
Yeah, that's good.
Or I have a question. I'm wondering, are we going to be given a document to review before we have our meeting?
Well, I'm hoping everyone will submit their slides to everyone else, and then we can review it, at some of them next week if we have time. Let me word that better. Review some of them, probably not all of them, because I suspect we will run out of time.
Thank you.
Did that address your question, Janice?
Yeah.
Okay, and then the ones we don't get to next week, we'll get to at the meeting after.
Okay.
Okay, that was everything on my agenda. I am all for short and sweet meetings. Does anyone else have anything?
I'm good.
Sounds good. Thank you for taking on the task of trying to make us all line up in a row. It's not easy, I know.
I am going to try to get meeting minutes out right away before I forget. And obviously, if it's to CERT soup, so everyone can send to that. If you see any errors, omissions, or anything you want to change, just reply.
Thank you.
I am going to stop the recording now because I think we're basically done.
Okay.
Neil, could you stay on so I can talk to you?
Sure. Does this need to be recorded or not?
No.